republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
I now recognize myself for an opening statement. I appreciate everyone being here today. In this hearing we have before us, we're focusing on unmanned aerial systems and how these systems are being exploited by criminal elements. This issue is no longer confined to science fiction or battlefield environments. It's now increasingly disrupting daily life in America. Over the past several years, UAS technology has rapidly advanced, becoming more affordable, more accessible, and more capable. While this has fueled innovation in commerce, public safety, and emergency response, it has also led to opportunities for abuse by criminals and adversaries alike. The threats we face today from drones are not theoretical. They're real, and they demand urgent attention. Between January and June of this year, the FAA recorded more than 1,000 UAS incursions near U.S. airports, a nearly 13% increase from the same period last year. Each of these incidents represents not just a violation of restricted airspace, but a potential catastrophe for passenger safety. Despite some progress like remote ID, our response architecture is fragmented. Remote ID helps with accountability, but it does not yet integrate into real-time air traffic management or provide automatic alerts to airport security. Additionally, most of our airports lack dedicated counter-UAS systems. Legal restrictions further complicate matters, limiting who can respond in real time. The problem does not end with aviation safety. Criminal networks are adapting UAS technology for nefarious purposes, dropping contraband into prisons, smuggling drugs and weapons across the U.S.-Mexican border, surveilling law enforcement, and in some cases experimenting with weaponization. Correctional facilities are continuing to face surging drone drops of drugs, phones, and weapons. The stealth, speed, and GPS-guided precision of modern drones make it difficult for correctional officers to detect or intercept them without specialized training or technology. These drops enable organized criminal activity within prison walls, disrupt inmate discipline, and threaten the safety of staff and inmates alike. U.S. Northern Command leadership reported that over 1,000 drones cross into U.S. airspace from the Mexican border each month, with CBP agents noting that in Texas, along the Rio Grande Valley alone, over 10,000 drone incursions and 25,000 drone sightings occurred in 2024. Unlike conventional smuggling methods, drones offer cartels a cost-effective and low-risk means to deliver small payloads while avoiding direct encounters with U.S. law enforcement. CBP and DoD recently recorded 70 incursions in 11 days around Laredo, prompting the deployment of Stryker units to bolster surveillance. Equipped with features like night vision and the ability to operate below radar thresholds, these drones present a stealthy and persistent challenge to border security. Despite this growing threat, CBP lacks the authority to disable or intercept UAS in most circumstances, limiting its ability to respond effectively in real time. National Special Security Events, NSSEs, such as presidential inaugurations, political conventions, high-profile sporting events, are increasingly vulnerable to drone-based threats due to their symbolic value, dense crowds, and media visibility. While federal agencies like the U.S. Secret Service, FBI, and DHS are authorized to deploy counter-UAS capabilities at national special security events under the Preventing Emergency Threats Act of 2018, these efforts are intense and confined to a limited number of events each year. DOJ officials testified that counter-UAS protections are typically planned months in advance and require substantial coordination with the FAA to ensure legitimate airspace operations are not inadvertently affected. As a result, thousands of public events that fall outside the NSSE designation, like any UAS mitigation coverage, even as drone incidents rise nationally. The expanding use of drones in public spaces also introduces new risks for first responders. In active shooter, protest, or hazardous material scenarios, the presence of unauthorized drones can obstruct airspace, delay medevac or surveillance operations, and even be used to track responder positions or deliver harmful payloads. Many of these tools are restricted under federal law and cannot be used by state or local entities without explicit authorization. Additionally, these systems must be miniaturized, cost-effective, and interoperable with existing emergency response infrastructure to be viable at scale. The dominance of Chinese manufacturers, particularly DJI, in the global drone market raises significant espionage concerns. Under Chinese law, companies are legally obligated to cooperate with Chinese national intelligence authorities, which amplifies the risk that drones supplied by these firms can transmit sensitive data back to foreign governments. As of today, DJI holds nearly 90% of the consumer drone market and approximately 75% in commercial sectors. Multiple policy reviews and commentaries warn that adversarial actors may exploit these supply chain vulnerabilities to gather intelligence on U.S. critical infrastructure, military bases, research facilities, and emergency operations. The threat is persistent and accelerating, and it will take a coordinated alignment of resources, technology, and authorities to contain it. This hearing serves an important step to confront and combat malicious drone use across the country and beyond. I look forward to hearing what our witnesses say and a lively discussion. And now, without objection, I want to enter into the record an article entitled, "Increasing Drone Incidents Near U.S. Airports, Stadiums, Prompt Alarm, Officials Say." And drones lifting inmates out of prisons, UK inspector says it's a theoretical possibility. Without objection. And now I yield back and recognize the ranking member of the entire committee, Mr. Raskin, for his opening statement.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, for holding this hearing on the rising threat posed by unmanned aircraft systems, commonly known as drones. The FAA reports that over 1 million drones are now registered in the U.S. for a broad range of commercial and recreational purposes. Government agencies also use them to improve diverse public safety operations, including search and rescue, disaster response, crime scene investigation, even traffic enforcement. But like any technology, including AI-enabled technology, which the subcommittee discussed earlier in the summer, drones can also be used for unlawful purposes, like delivering contraband to inmates in prison or ferrying fentanyl across the northern and southern borders of our country. 2023, in my home state, in Maryland, 15 people were indicted as part of a criminal network that used drones to smuggle fentanyl and other drugs, cell phones, tools, and other contraband into the Roxbury Correctional Institution in Hagerstown. I'm sure that many of my colleagues have similar stories from their own states. The DOJ is one of 5 federal agencies with drone detection and mitigation authority, which allows the department to detect, track, and even destroy drones that pose a credible threat to federal courthouses, prisons, and large gatherings. The FBI and the Federal Bureau of Prisons are also able to utilize some counter-drone detection systems. In fact, earlier this year, BOP reported the agency has deployed such systems at 64 facilities, which have helped detect malicious drone use, better inform law enforcement of incoming threats, and locate suspected criminal drone operators. Today, as we discuss law enforcement efforts to respond to malicious drone activity and the use of drones to enhance public safety, we must be mindful of the risks associated with the detection and mitigation of drones, as well as the need to respect the privacy interests and civil liberties of the public in the process. We must make sure that law enforcement uses both drone and counter-drone technology correctly, safely, and always within the bounds of the law. That's why I was pleased to join the chairs and ranking members of the Transportation Infrastructure Committee and the Homeland Security Committee to introduce H.R. 5061, the Counter-UAS Authority, Security, Safety, and Reauthorization Act. The bill, which was reported favorably by the Transportation Infrastructure Committee by a remarkable vote of 60-0, would reauthorize, reform, and expand the existing counter-unmanned aircraft system or counter-UAS authorities of the Homeland Security Department and the DOJ. Among other provisions, the bipartisan bill would for the first time expand these authorities to state and local law enforcement through a carefully calibrated pilot program. The bill would also establish training standards for these agencies to meet before they can operate counter-UAS systems and minimum performance requirements for counter-UAS technology before it can be deployed, ensuring these systems are used safely and solely within the strictures of the law. I trust today's hearing will convince my colleagues of the need to support this bill and that we will see swift, unanimous passage of it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks to all of our witnesses for being here. I look forward to hearing from you, and I yield back.
The gentleman yields. Thank you. Without objection, all other opening statements will be included in the record. And now we will introduce today's witnesses. We will begin with Dr. Catherine Cahill. Dr. Cahill is the director of the Alaska Center for Unmanned Aircraft Systems Integration ACUASI, and the Geophysical Institute at the University of Alaska Fairbanks. ACUASI leads one of the 7 FAA UAS test sites, heads the FAA's Alaska Beyond site, and is a core university in the FAA's Center of Excellence for UAS Research. Dr. Cahill has served as a member of the FAA's Drone Advisory Committee and Advanced Aviation Advisory Committee. Thank you for being with us today, Dr. Cahill. Dr. Ryan Wallace is a professor at Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University. His research focuses on UAS safety, security, human factors, and public policy. Dr. Wallace has conducted training seminars for federal agencies on the topics of UAS safety, operations, and counter-UAS techniques. He also serves as a representative on the FAA's drone safety team and served in the U.S. Air Force. Thank you for being with us, Dr. Wallace. Mr. Brett Feddersen is the Vice President for Strategy and Government Affairs at Defend Solutions, a manufacturer of counter-drone systems for the military, law enforcement, and others. He also serves as the chair of the Security Industry Association's Drone Security Subcommittee. He previously served as the Executive Director for National Security Programs and Incident Response at the FAA, and in various roles at the Pentagon, the White House, in the U.S. Army, and as a Pennsylvania State Trooper. Thank you, Mr. Feddersen, for being with us today. And next is Sergeant Robert Dooley. Sergeant Dooley has served for more than 22 years with the Florida Highway Patrol, where he is currently the UAS and CUAS program coordinator. He developed and has led the FHP's UAS program since its inception. Sergeant Dooley is an expert in law enforcement, UAS operations, disaster response operations, and special event and high-value target UAS security operations. Thank you all for being with us today. We will begin by swearing you in and ask that you would each rise and raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is true and correct to the best of your knowledge, information, and belief, so help you God? The record will reflect that the witnesses have each answered in the affirmative. Thank you. Please be seated. Each of you should know that your written testimony will be entered into the record in its entirety. Accordingly, we ask that you summarize your testimony in 5 minutes, and we're going to begin today with Sergeant Dooley. So you're recognized for your 5 minutes. And I'll just tell you, you should see a clock in front of you, and when you're about 10 seconds before you hit 5, I will start tapping like this, and then that means please wrap it up, and we'll try to be a little bit lenient because we appreciate you being here, but we would ask you to stay for 5 minutes because we all have your testimony, we've all read your testimony. So Sergeant Dooley, you're first.
Thank you and good afternoon. Again, I'm Sergeant Robert Dooley, Florida Highway Patrol. I'm our statewide coordinator for our unmanned operations. The critical importance of drone detection and mitigation for public safety as unmanned aircraft systems continue to proliferate across recreational, commercial, and malicious domains. The ability of public safety agencies to detect and mitigate unauthorized or threatening drones has become a national imperative. This statement outlines the growing threat landscape associated with drones, discusses the current challenges in detection and mitigation, and advocates for urgent integration of counter-UAS capabilities within a broader spectrum of public safety framework. The rapid evolution and accessibility of drone technology have transformed industries and revolutionized emergency response and public safety operations. However, with this growth comes an increasing threat of misuse, whether intentional or negligent. From contraband drops over prison yards to surveillance of critical infrastructure and interruptions of emergency scenes, public safety agencies now face a complex airspace risk. The ability to detect, track, identify, and when necessary, mitigate rogue drones is essential for protecting lives, preserving critical infrastructure, and ensuring operational integrity. Drones present a unique set of challenges to public safety. As you spoke earlier, criminal exploitation. Criminal organizations increasingly use drones to smuggle drugs, weapons, and contraband into correctional facilities or across the borders. Terrorist use, adversarial state and non-state actors have experimented with drones for surveillance and weaponization, creating low-cost and low-detection threat vectors. Privacy violations and harassment. Drones can be used to stalk, harass, or violate privacy of civilians and law enforcement officers, often in ways that are difficult to detect and prevent. Interference with public safety operations. Unauthorized drones flying near traffic crashes, fire scenes, disaster zones can impede emergency response, creating hazardous conditions for both responders and civilians. The need for detection and mitigation capabilities. Public safety agencies must be able to detect, identify, and, if authorized, mitigate UAS threats in real time. Without this capability, agencies operate blindly in shared airspace, increasing risk to both responders and the public. The key benefits of these capabilities include situational awareness. Drone detection systems enhance airspace awareness, allowing agencies to monitor aerial activity near sensitive locations or active scenes. Threat identification. Identifying type, intent, and operator of drone is essential for appropriate response and legal action. Incident mitigation. In critical scenarios, stopping or redirecting a drone may be necessary to prevent harm or disruption, especially during mass gatherings, dignitary protection, or major disasters. Current limitations and legal barriers. Despite the urgent need, most state, local, tribal, and territorial public safety agencies lack the legal authority to mitigate and often face limitations even detecting them. Only federal agencies currently possess this broad CUAS authority under 6 U.S.C. 124N, leaving a gap in homeland security at the local level. Additionally, technology access. CUAS systems are costly, complex, and often limited to military or federal use. Interagency coordination. There's a lack of real-time data sharing and standard operating procedures that could hinder unified responses. And policy gaps. Existing federal laws, including the FAA's preemption of airspace regulation, complicate the roles and responsibility of our SLTT agencies. Legislative reform is needed. Granted limited controlled UAS authority to vetted and trained public safety entities under federal oversight, as proposed in several legislative efforts. Training and standardization. Create a standardized CUS training and certification programs, ensuring safety, accountability, and legal compliance. Technology deployment. Fund and deploy scalable, non-kinetic drone detection systems to local agencies, particularly those responsible for critical infrastructure and mass events. Public and private collaboration. Encourage partnerships between technology providers, law enforcement, and federal agencies to pilot CUS tools under lawful frameworks. And community engagement. Educate the public on the responsible use of drones and build awareness of the risks associated with unauthorized operations. The ability to detect, mitigate rogue drones is no longer a futuristic concept, it's a present-day necessity. Public safety professionals stand on the front lines of both natural and man-made crises and lack a CUAS capability, which leaves a critical vulnerability in our national preparedness. With federal agencies play a vital role, empowering state, local responders with tools, training, and authority to protect their communities from aerial threats is the next essential step in securing the homeland. And I thank you, and I await your questions.
Thank you, Sergeant Dooley. Chair now recognizes Mr. Feddersen for his 5 minutes. Mr. Feddersen, please.
Good afternoon, Chairman Biggs, Ranking Member Raskin, distinguished members of the subcommittee. Thank you for the honor of appearing before you today. My name is Brett Feddersen. I am the Vice President of Strategy and Government Affairs at Defend Solutions, a leading counter-drone manufacturer. I also serve as the chair of the Security Industry Association's Drone Security Subcommittee, a group comprised of leading providers and end users of counter-drone technologies available in the world. I commend the subcommittee for its proactive focus on the threat that has quickly gone from a distant concern to clear and present danger to our national security, to our critical infrastructure, and to our public safety. The illegal use of drones has evolved from simple nuisance akin trespassing to sophisticated criminal and malicious activity. The accessible affordability and adaptability of this technology have given us new capabilities, most often used for good. However, they also have created significant vulnerabilities that we as a nation are not yet prepared to face. We can categorize these threats into 3 primary domains. First is criminal and illicit activities. The use of drones by criminal and terrorist organizations is no longer a hypothetical scenario. Incidents of drones being used to deliver contraband like drugs and weapons into correctional facilities are a daily occurrence across America. The weaponization of drones has been occurring in the United States for years. The internet has brought battlefield tactics to North America through shared lessons learned in conflicts in Europe and the Middle East. We continue to see rival cartels repeatedly conduct indiscriminate carpet bombing attacks against other cartels using explosive-laden drones. In 2021, the Jalisco New Generation Cartel created a dedicated unit of drone operators to attack rival groups in Mexico. Today, Mexican cartels are reportedly using one-way attack drones alongside the more traditional explosive-carrying quadcopters. And last year, U.S. federal authorities detected approximately 60,000 cartel drones near the border. The second category is physical and cyber attacks on critical infrastructure. The potential for drone attacks in critical infrastructure is alarming. A drone with a small payload could cause widespread disruption and economic turmoil by damaging power stations, water treatment plants, communication towers, or data centers. U.S. critical infrastructure is often protected by trained security professionals, not law enforcement. Any assumption that state and local law enforcement could fill the private security gap is a gross underestimation of reality of police resources. The third category is surveillance and espionage. Drones offer a low-cost, low-risk platform for persistent surveillance. They can be equipped with sophisticated cameras and sensors to gather intelligence from a distance without the need of physical access. Drones can bypass traditional security perimeters, making them a favored tool for illicit trade. Domestically, drones are being used to stalk, harass, and spy on people in their own homes. This invasion of privacy goes unchecked as police watch the drones fly away without leaving a physical footprint for them to follow. Our current legal and technological frameworks have not kept pace with these clear and growing dangers. The authority to detect and mitigate malicious drones is fragmented across the federal agencies, creating confusions and gaps in response. While safe and effective counter-drone technology exists today, its use is severely restricted by current laws. To address these challenges, I respectfully offer the following recommendations to the subcommittee for consideration. A comprehensive federal counter-drone legislation. We need clear and cohesive framework of nationwide counter-drone operations. Year after year, Congress continues to introduce counter-drone legislation, but never passes it. This legislation should immediately expand the legal authorities to detect, track, and identify drone threats to all federal agencies, state, local, tribal, and territorial law enforcement, and trained security professionals protecting our critical infrastructure. This legislation should also expand the existing 2018 federal pilot program for the mitigation of drone threats to those same federal, state, and local entities and trained security professionals. This pilot program must be launched in a robust manner to enable the rapid scaling of capabilities ahead of the World Cup, America's 250th anniversary celebration, next year's elections, and the 2028 Olympics. If these authorities are not granted by Congress quickly, then these mass gatherings will go unprotected and will require federal resources to be diverted from the border and other critical national infrastructure missions. In conclusion, the threat from malicious drones uses in real, immediate, and growing. We must take decisive action now. I thank you for your time and look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Feddersen. Chair now recognizes Dr. Wallace for his 5 minutes. Dr. Wallace.
Chairman Biggs, Ranking Member Raskin, and other distinguished committee members, thank you for the opportunity to testify on the important issue of protecting our nation from the misuse of unmanned aircraft systems, sometimes referred to as UAS or more colloquially as drones. My name is Ryan Wallace, and I currently serve as a professor at Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University. And for the past 10 years, my research has focused primarily on UAS safety and security threats through the use of UAS detection equipment. The misuse of unmanned aircraft is not fundamentally a technology problem, but rather a people problem. What makes this problem particularly challenging is the unique aerial capabilities that UAS provide to their operators, capabilities previously limited only to those with the resources and training to operate manned aircraft. The accessibility, affordability, and automation have now placed these capabilities within the reach of anyone with a few $100s. This creates a disproportionate force multiplier for bad actors. The destructive potential of consumer drones recently came to global attention in Ukraine during the famed Operation Spider's Web, where small drones were used to conduct rapid, surprising, accurate, and devastating attacks. These attacks were executed with near impunity, highlighting the critical vulnerability gap posed by UAS threats. The remote nature of these attacks left no one to arrest or hold accountable. Today, these tactics and technology are being employed both domestically and near our borders. The FAA estimates there are currently more than 2.8 million drones in the United States, nearly double the number of drones than in 2018, than when the Preventing Emerging Threats Act was signed into law. Today, UAS outnumber manned aircraft by nearly 13 to 1. The agency estimates that within 5 years, this number will grow a further 10%. Presently, drones are causing three major domestic problems. One, creating a collision risk with aircraft operating in the national airspace system. Two, contraband delivery into prisons and correctional institutions. And three, incursions along our borders. The potential consequences of a mid-air collision with a drone erode the safety of our skies. As of the second quarter of 2025, the FAA recorded a total of 1,022 sightings, approximately 170 per month, with aircrew reportedly taking evasive action in 2.8% of those cases. In January this year, a Canadair CL-415 conducting suppression operations struck a small drone operating at low altitude within a temporary flight-restricted zone near the Palisades Fire. Air operations were suspended, allowing that fire to expand unabated, further enhancing the destruction and risk to response personnel. According to Michael Torfey, the FBI, and Christopher Hardy of the Department of Justice, drone activity has proliferated to more than half of the Bureau of Prison federal facilities, with incidents climbing to more than 479 in 2024, nearly 20 times the number since the agency started tracking in 2018. Similarly, Stephen Willoughby from the Department of Homeland Security highlighted the extent of the porous UAS activity along the U.S. border, stating, in the last 6 months of 2024, more than 27,000 drones were detected within 500 meters of the southern border. To effectively address these challenges, I offer several observations. Foremost, that all drone incidents are local incidents first. Often, first responders to these incidents will be sworn officers from one of the nation's nearly 18,000 state and local law enforcement agencies. Most of these agencies lack formal training for dealing with drone incidents, and even fewer are equipped with tools to support the detection, tracking, and identification of UAS. Currently, no state or local law enforcement agencies are equipped and authorized to forcibly take down a UAS threat without the compliance of the operator, who may be positioned miles away from the aerial vehicle. Testimony by Michael Torfey from the FBI underscored resource limitations in providing counter-UAS protection, highlighting the agency was only able to cover 0.05% of the more than 240,000 special events eligible for counter-UAS protection. Ultimately, the widespread immediate need for counter-UAS protection should be a part of the calculus used to determine future authorities. Training is a vital element in protecting our public safety personnel to respond effectively to drone incidents. Foremost, it is essential to ensure both UAS detection and mitigation efforts do not create or exacerbate hazards within the national airspace system through spectrum interference with navigation or communications infrastructure, or impede air traffic management functions. Training is also necessary to educate officers on how to effectively respond, investigate, document, and charge these incidents in a manner that leads to successful prosecutions. Moreover, such training ensures reinforcement of appropriate procedures designed to protect the rights, expression, privacy, and other civil liberties. There is no magic bullet technological solutions to this problem. Each type of technology has its own inherent capabilities and limitations. Finally, I would like to highlight the vital importance of continued research and development. Research consortiums like the Alliance for System Safety of UAS through Research Excellence, ASSURE, and its accompanying trading arm are experienced, equipped, and ready to address these challenges affecting the national airspace system.
Thank you, Dr. Wallace. And now the chair recognizes Dr. Cahill for her 5-minute opening statement.
Thank you. Chairman Biggs, Ranking Member Raskin, Ranking Member Macbeth, and esteemed members of the Subcommittee on Crime and Federal Government Surveillance. My name is Kathy Cahill, and I am the director of AQUASI, the Alaska Center for Unmanned Aircraft Systems Integration. AQUASI leads one of the 7 FAA test sites, when we are a key player in many other FAA, DOJ, and DoD programs. We also partner with a variety of commercial and governmental entities on cutting-edge UAS and counter-UAS technologies required to safely integrate UAS into the national airspace system. These facts uniquely position me to discuss the topic of malicious UAS. This written testimony is provided to you through my personal capacity as a private citizen and is based on my professional experience. It does not necessarily represent the views of the University of Alaska. AQUASI uses UAS for good, such as conducting medical supply delivery, cargo delivery to isolated communities, and emergency response. However, our team is very aware of how they can be used maliciously. I live in Alaska, but even in this remote location, our team has seen the malicious use of UAS. We have seen flights of unauthorized UAS in the flight path of Ted Stevens International Airport, one of the top 5 cargo airports in the world. Simultaneously, we have seen multiple UAS entering the restricted airspace of our military bases. We have observed the flight tracks of UAS dropping contraband into correctional facilities. I personally have seen UAS crossing the southern border, bringing drugs from Mexico. All of these examples show that malicious UAS activities are widespread, and we need policies, procedures, training, and technologies to allow law enforcement to stop these activities without creating a hazard to people and property. The first question I always get asked when I talk to the public about the issue of malicious UAS is, why can't we shoot them? The United States Code, Section 49, defines UAS as aircraft, and all of the laws codified for traditional manned aircraft apply to them. Therefore, shooting a UAS is a federal offense with applicable jail time and fines. Only 5 agencies, DOD, DOE, DHS, DOJ, and to a limited extent FAA, have relief from the United States Code sections applicable to shooting down or hacking or jamming UAS. So most law enforcement operators dealing with unauthorized UAS do not have the legal authority to do so. Also, it's unsafe to mitigate a UAS without knowing what is under it and what might get hit when the UAS falls. Additionally, the operator of a counter-UAS system needs to know if the UAS under observation is authorized to be flying in that location. These facts point to why we need highly trained professionals with appropriate statutory relief and good information making the risk-benefit calculations about whether and how a UAS should be mitigated. As the malicious use of UAS spreads, state and local law enforcement officers will be on the front lines for combating the threat from the rogue UAS, because federal agents with counter-drone capacities cannot be everywhere. The Aquasi team has been studying the willingness of local law enforcement officers to engage with systems designed to detect, track, and identify malicious UAS. In Alaska, we have had trouble getting state and local law enforcement officers to address rogue UAS because they're overworked, understaffed, dealing with more urgent situations, and feel it is not their responsibility to do so. Additionally, many of the law enforcement participants in our study are unsure as to what laws are applicable to malicious UAS and do not know what they can legally do to build a case for the misuse of UAS. We need to provide our law enforcement officers with clear guidance on how to address rogue UAS, and that as the risk from malicious UAS increases, the potential to mitigate the UAS in certain circumstances. We cannot afford to allow criminals to use UAS maliciously or our adversaries to